Hi, welcome to UMFS Live, episode 6. My name is Nate. I'm communications specialist at UMFS. I am dialing in right now for this week's guest. Let's see here. There we go. And so I have sent an invite to Patrick, who is an English teacher over at Charterhouse School. He works primarily with young people in our residential program. There he is, Patrick. Hey, good afternoon. Thank you for joining.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Patrick, we appreciate your time. We're excited to have you here on UMFS Live, where each week we have an opportunity to speak with some of the team members who work over at Child and Family Healing Center and other departments at UMFS, but specifically right now we're concentrating on CFHC. So thank you for your time. I wanted to know if we could just start asking by how long have you been at Charterhouse School, but more importantly, what brought you there?
This is my 5th year, so I'm almost done with my 5th year. I was actually moving to Richmond from Arlington, and there was an old coworker that I just Googled, and he was here. And I'm not big on extensive job searches, so I just kind of ended up here. But yeah, I did not know what I was getting myself into, because my background was all working with kids on the autism spectrum.
Mm-hmm. And what were you doing in Arlington before you came to Richmond to Charterhouse School?
I worked at with higher functioning kids on the spectrum at Wakefield High School, so the Arlington Public Schools system.
Mm-hmm. And so you reach out to a friend, you come to Richmond, and you discover UMFS, Charterhouse School, and the Child and Family Healing Center. How has teaching youth in this residential program impacted you?
I mean, everything. The way I think, I'm way more careful with my words now. I'm much more empathetic of types of human behavior. I've gotten way more involved in kind of researching mental health and why people act the way they do. So I'd say it's just made me a much more patient, empathetic, and happier person. It's because, with our kids, when you read what's happened to them and then you kind of just see the direct correlation between that and their behavior, it really, for me at least, it's like slowed life down and made things a lot simpler and made me way less opinionated and like slower to jump to conclusions and all that stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, you and your entire team do such an amazing job communicating with the young people in the program, the students, the residents, and sometimes under, pretty difficult circumstances. You've mentioned to me in the past when we were talking about all the studying up you did when you came to Charterhouse School, the different things you were looking into, especially in terms of trauma. Can you talk a little bit about what you were reading, watching, that was helping inform your perspectives?
Yes, the movies are Resilience, and then there's one called Paper Tigers about a school in Washington State that I really liked. The books, there's tons. The first one I read, I think, was The Boy Who Was Raised as a Dog by Dr. Bruce Perry, who's also got like tons of talks on YouTube. Just wrote a book with Oprah. And then I read The Body Keeps Score. And then also my favorite one's probably The Deepest Well by Dr. Nadine Burke-Harris, who's now like the Surgeon General of California. And she's done tons of stuff with ACE studies. She's got a ton of TED Talks too. So there's stuff out there. And I wasn't aware of any of this stuff. But I think, to get started with, the first one I read was The Boy Who Was Raised as a Dog.
And that sort of research, I mean, did that help you, or was it really the in-person interactions, getting to know these students and residents?
It was both. I was really happy to be researching as I was working with the kids, because if not, you can get really frustrated and not understand why they may be participating in a certain behavior or why their reaction might be really aggressive to just a simple question. But doing both at the same time was a huge help. It was definitely like trial by fire. I remember the first day I was just trying to like get a baseline of their knowledge, and I showed like a clip from Hey Arnold and was like, name, and then some guy just turned around and he's like, oh my God, this guy's old. Like, and they all started laughing, and I was like, what is going on here? But yeah, it's good for both. And I've tried to continue to do research. I read a lot about, whether it's diet or exercise or whatever it is, like things that can help mental health and also the different ways like PTSD and stuff affects the brains of our children.
right? And you mentioned it, and they've often been through so much, but one of the things that we are able to celebrate with the young people is a moment we call commencement. And for those who are watching who aren't familiar with commencement, it's this really great celebration of them coming to the end of their treatment time at UMFS, Charterhouse School and Child and Family Healing Center. Of course, with the pandemic, we haven't been able to have these commencement ceremonies in person the way we have. But all that to say, I'm just wondering, as I'm thinking back to a few years, Patrick, I remember you spoke in celebration of one of the young people who was commencing, and you said some really powerful words. Do you remember that instance? And can you kind of recap that for us and your connection you have with that?
Yeah, that was kind of the first kid where I kind of realized that this is like what I'm supposed to do, and that I was going to be doing this long term. I think he came to us when he was 11, had been through all types of horrific experiences, and was this like sweet, nurturing, like empathetic kid that was also prone to these crazy violent outbursts, or not crazy, but these violent outbursts, or just doing things that seemed completely out of character. And he was with us for longer than normal because of, you know, certain things that happened. And yeah, we just kind of, unfortunately, we were like his de facto family for a couple of years. So we got to see him grow up and go through all these changes. So the commencement was very emotional. I feel like for everyone that was there with him, because there was just so many people he had close relationships with. And I think the main lesson from him is sometimes it takes months to form a relationship, which can be super frustrating, because at first he wasn't even in a position where he could really have a conversation. He was so traumatized. And then the next stage was kind of him being incredibly disrespectful and you know, kind of making it impossible to have class. But then just through everyone's empathy and patience, we slowly got to like see him kind of turn back into the kid he was before all those things happened to him. So yeah, I definitely remember that kid. I think that was my second year. And he was a super special young man. And I also worked in his cottage, so I got to see him all the time. It was great. But yeah, it was hard to get through that without like crying, which is not normally something I struggle with.
Right. Well, you mentioned earlier that you've learned a lot of empathy and really taken a new view after having come here and working with the children and teens that we serve. So I'm sure that relationship meant as much to that young person as it did to you. I want to move forward here and talk a little bit about the creative ways in which you are able to engage with your students. Can you talk about what you did during the pandemic? Really, I mean, that was just such a different, you know, way of having to approach teaching and occupy time in a positive way. And just reminding anyone who might be